in the frozen heart of a killer blizzard, where the wind screamed like 1,000 angry ghosts and every breath felt like it could be the last, one lonely cowboy risked his life, not for money, not for fame, but for a stranger whose dark eyes carried more fear and pain than the deadly storm itself. Daniel hunched low on his horse, Buck, fighting against the powerful wind. The prairie had become a vast white sea of snow. He could barely see 2 steps ahead. Sharp snowflakes cut into his face like tiny blades. His thick coat was heavy with ice. His fingers inside the gloves felt numb, and his lips were cracked from the cold. But he could not stop. Stopping in this storm meant certain death. He had learned that the hard way in all his years riding alone across these empty lands. "Just keep going, boy," he whispered to Buck, patting the horse's neck. His words disappeared instantly in the roaring wind. Suddenly, through the swirling wall of white, something caught his eye. A dark shape half buried in the snow beside an old twisted tree. At first he thought it was just a fallen log or maybe a dead animal, but as he rode closer, his heart skipped a beat. It was a woman. She lay curled into a tight ball, almost completely covered by snow. Her thin dress and old shawl were no protection against this freezing hell. Her lips had turned blue, and her body shook with violent shivers. Daniel quickly jumped down from the saddle. His boots sank deep into the snow. "Ma'am, you can't stay here like this. You will die if you don't move," he said, his voice rough but filled with real worry. He stretched out his gloved hand toward her. The woman's eyes opened slowly. When she saw him, a tall white cowboy standing over her, she shrank back in pure terror. "Stay away from me, cowboy," she gasped weakly, coughing hard. Her English was broken, but her words were sharp. "Your people, you only bring pain and death." Her long dark hair was stuck to her frozen cheeks. Even while half dead from the cold, she looked strong and proud, like a wild animal that refused to be tamed. I could tell she was Apache from the beads and patterns on her torn clothes. Daniel understood her fear very well. For many years, white settlers and Apache people had fought bitterly. There had been raids, broken treaties, and too much blood on both sides. But right now, none of that history mattered. The storm was growing even stronger. "Listen to me carefully," he said, kneeling down so his face was closer to hers. Snow piled up on his broad shoulders. "There is no town, no house, nothing for many miles. If we don't warm you up right now, you will not live to see the morning light. The only way is to share body heat. I will hold you close under my coat. I promise I will do nothing more. You have my word as a man." She stared at him with wide, doubtful eyes. Her teeth chattered loudly. Shame and fear fought on her face. For what felt like a very long minute, she said nothing. Then another powerful shiver ran through her whole body, and she finally whispered in a broken voice, I have no choice." Tears formed in her eyes and froze on her long lashes as she allowed him to lift her gently. Daniel opened his heavy coat and pulled her tightly against his chest. He sat down with his back against the tree, holding her like a precious child. At first, her body stayed stiff and tense. Her small hands pushed weakly against him. She was still afraid. But slowly, very slowly, the warmth from his strong body began to flow into her cold skin. Her breathing became softer. Her head finally rested on his shoulder. He could feel her heartbeat, which had been racing with fear, now slowing down into a calmer rhythm. Time passed slowly in the middle of the storm. The wind howled louder than ever. "My name is a pony," she said in a soft, tired voice, almost surprised that she was talking to him. "It means butterfly in my language, but today I feel like a butterfly trapped in ice." A small, sad laugh left her lips. For the first time, the hard fear in her eyes melted into something tired, grateful, and almost gentle. Daniel gave a faint smile, his own face half frozen. "I'm Daniel, and you are much stronger than any butterfly I ever seen." He gently rubbed her arms and back to keep her blood flowing. Deep inside his chest, his heart was beating fast, not only because of the cold. Holding this stranger so close, feeling her slowly begin to trust him, awakened something he had not felt in many lonely years. He'd been riding alone for so long, running away from old pain and regrets. Now this Apache woman, who should have been his enemy, was warming not just her body, but also a cold, empty place in his soul. Then, cutting through the wild noise of the storm, came the sound of horses' hooves, dull but coming closer. A pony suddenly became stiff in his arms again. "They're here," she whispered, panic filling her voice once more. "5 men. They believe I stole a silver watch from their camp, but I did not take it. They will not believe me. They want to kill me or do even worse things." Daniel's face became hard. He helped her stand up, though her legs were still weak and shaken. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. He pulled out his pistol and looked into the blinding snow. A few moments later, 5 riders appeared like shadows, their guns already drawn. The leader, a large man with an ugly scar on his face, shouted loudly, "There she is! Get the thief!" Daniel stepped in front of a pony, using his own body as a shield. "She's with me now," he said in a steady voice. "Turn around and leave. No one has to die in this storm tonight."
The men laughed cruelly. "One cowboy against all of us? You must be crazy." A gunshot rang out. Snow burst up near Daniel's feet. He fired back quickly and calmly, hitting the leader's horse in the shoulder. The horse reared up in pain and threw its rider into the deep snow. Everything turned into chaos. Another man charged forward. Daniel tackled him hard, throwing punches with all his strength. Apani, no longer helpless, picked up a thick branch from the ground and swung it with surprising force at the third rider's head. Her fear had now turned into brave anger. Bullets flew past him in the white storm. One bullet grazed Daniel's left arm, sending a hot, burning pain through him, but he did not stop fighting. He grabbed Apani's cold hand tightly. "Run, now!" They ran together through the blinding blizzard. Snow whipped their faces. Their lungs burned from the freezing air. Shouts and more gunshots grew fainter behind them as the storm swallowed the angry men. After running for what seemed like forever, they reached a rocky area. A small, dark opening appeared in the rocks, a cave just big enough for 2 people. They crawled inside, exhausted, and fell onto the dry ground. The wind still howled outside like an angry beast, but the thick cave walls protected them from the worst of the cold and snow. For many minutes they lay side by side, breathing heavily. Daniel's arm was bleeding and the pain was sharp. Apani saw it. Her hand shook as she tore a long strip from her shawl and carefully wrapped it around his wound to stop the blood. You could have left me there to die," she said, her voice breaking with emotion.
Tears filled her eyes and rolled down her cheeks. "Why did you risk your life for me? I'm nothing to you. Apache and cowboy, we are taught to hate each other." Daniel looked at her in the soft, dim light that came through the cave entrance. Her face, even covered with dirt and dried tears, looked soft and beautiful. "Because if I had left you," he said quietly, his voice thick with feeling, "I would have become no better than those men. I have seen too much killing and hatred in my life. Tonight, I chose to be different." He paused, swallowing hard. "And maybe I was simply tired of being alone in this world." A pony reached out slowly and touched his cold, rough cheek with her now warm fingers. "I was wrong about you, Daniel," she whispered softly. "When you held me in the snow, I felt something I had not felt in many years. Safe. Not just warm, but truly safe." A shy, gentle smile appeared on her lips. In that quiet moment, something beautiful and new sparked between them, something deeper than fear, stronger than the raging storm outside. She rested her head on his chest again, listening to the steady beat of his heart. He wrapped his good arm around her shoulders and pulled her closer. This closeness no longer felt like just survival. It felt warm, hopeful, and full of quiet promise. Outside, the blizzard continued to rage, hiding them from the dangerous world. But inside the small cave, two people who should have been enemies shared gentle words, soft touches, and honest stories. A pony told him how she had been forced to run from a cruel camp, and how the men had lied about the silver watch just to hunt her. Daniel opened up about losing his parents when he was young, and how he had wandered the trails all alone ever since, always afraid to let anyone close to his heart. Their voices became softer and softer as the night went on. Their eyes grew heavy, but the invisible bond between them grew stronger with every shared breath and every honest word. As the long, cold night slowly passed and the storm finally began to grow weaker, they did not know what the morning light would bring. Maybe more danger, maybe a chance for a new beginning. But one thing was very clear in both their hearts. This single frozen night in the middle of nowhere had changed their lives forever. Two lonely souls, brought together by courage, shared warmth, and growing trust, had found a small, bright light in the deepest darkness. For the first time in many years, Daniel felt truly warm inside, not because of his coat, but because of the brave woman who now slept peacefully with her head on his chest. A pony dreamed of beautiful butterflies rising freely from the snow. Together they had fought death and won. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would now face it side by side, no longer alone. Thank you for riding along on this story. Drop your location and time one more time if you'd like, and if it touched you, like, send some stars, follow, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you in the next tale.